The Bitcoin
Nice.
Group, the American original. For over the last 10 years, the sharpest Satoshis, the best Bitcoins, the hardest cryptocurrency talk. We'd like to welcome our panelists, Dan Eve, the Crypto Raptor,
Hey, hey, happy Friday.
Juan Galt from Bitcoin Magazine,
Hello there.
Robert Allen from CoinCube,
Hello, hello.
and I'm Thomas Hunt from the World Crypto Network. Moving on to issue one. Issue one, Coinbase didn't get hacked. Coinbase employees sold customer data on the black market. Coinbase failed to protect customer data. Yes, that's right. Somehow everyone you know is in the 1% getting those Coinbase texts today as Brian Armstrong traded to get cheap labor and you, the Coinbase users, get kidnapped. Yes, cyber criminals bribed and recruited rogue overseas support agents, likely underpaid, to pull personal data on less than 1% of Coinbase MTUs, whatever that means. No passwords, private keys, or funds were exposed. Prime accounts are untouched. I don't know what that means either. We will reimburse impacted customers. How on earth will they restore your privacy? They claim that they were attacked, $20 million ransom, which they refused to pay. And now they're using the $20 million to try to fight these hackers. This is just after the report we talked about a few weeks ago, where Coinbase allowed their users to fall prey to social engineering scams. Now Coinbase themselves has fallen prey to hiring cheap support agents, leading to hacks. Dan Eve, what do you think about this stunning news from Coinbase, completely knocking their addition to the S&P 500 off the board? Off the board. They replaced Discover Card. I would want to open with that. I can't. What do you
Yeah,
got?
that's really a bit of a kick in the teeth, right? Right, the last minute, they're on the day there, or well, a couple of days after, we're getting the news that they're being added to the S&P, and apparently this happened more than a few days ago, and they've only just reported it. I mean, it sounds like Brian Armstrong's doing a bit of a bold move, right, by saying they're going to offer 20 million for information arrest leading to the arrest of the hackers. So he's doing a kind of Mel Gibson is it ransom or sort of approach, but it doesn't sound good, right? They're obviously in charge of a lot of people's sensitive data. We've also seen recently that CEO's daughter or granddaughter of an exchange that got beaten and almost kidnapped in France. So, and we've had various instances, even the last year, there was someone, wasn't there a French exchange guy that had his finger cut off in a hijacking sort of a kidnapping attempt. So, it's a very serious thing that definitely happens, and our data's, as Bitcoiners, our data needs to be protected. So this is a big issue for Coinbase. I did see a funny tweet that I don't know if it was real, but it was like apparently from a hacker that said, "Hey, I was gonna hack you, but I realized that you've been holding Ethereum since $4,000, so so you're screwed anyway, and also change your password." But yeah, this is bad from Coinbase, and remember that these guys are custodians for some of the biggest institutions as well. This isn't just customer funds. These guys are holding for the big guns. So it's not a good image for them. But yeah, hopefully they find the hackers, attackers, and get that money back. I'm sure it can be traced as it always is.
Well, I think the real criminals, the real ones who allowed this crime to happen, are at Coinbase. The fault is with themselves. You think they would have learned after hiring that hacking team that was accused of criminal violations of other people, including hospitals and other such political targets? It matters who you hire. It matters who you pay. And Coinbase should have thought this out from the beginning. From the beginning, their customer data was the most important thing. We saw with the hack of, I think it was Ledger, I want to say, where their public marketing database was hacked. So their private stuff was private, but they let the marketing guy have his own email. It was like a MailChimp account or something. They got all the emails and all the names. This seems to be much worse. It seems like they got the emails, the names, maybe the home addresses, and perhaps the amount of money and Bitcoin that you moved through Coinbase. So this is very bad. It's going to be leaked. It's going to be sold. It's going to be resold. It's hugely embarrassing to Coinbase, who seems bulletproof otherwise, but keeps failing in these little ways, like we talked about in the opening, that they're not protecting their users from phishing scams. You can transfer out tons of money. There's no kind of controls or anything. There's no default controls. It really seems out of control. Robert Allen, what do you think about Coinbase and the latest troubles?
Well, I think they owe my parents 1.5 Bitcoin because my parents were scammed about a month ago. They had their phone number, address, all sorts of information. They called them, my parents are 79 and 81, and they're getting older, so they were just too trusting. And these people, obviously, when you have a ton of information about someone and you call and you say, "Hey, we're calling from Coinbase," they didn't know better, sadly. And then the guys started doing stuff where he was like, "Well, don't call anyone because your phone's been hacked." So they didn't call any of their children because, of course, we would have told them, like, calm down, don't do anything. But they basically social engineered them out of 1.5 Bitcoin. It was in a Blockstream green wallet. But my dad apparently gave them the, was it 6-digit PIN? And apparently they say that they did not send the Bitcoin to anyone. So as far as we know, like, maybe they got some kind of a malware device onto his phone. I don't know. It's a bit of a mystery, but all we know is the money is gone. It's pretty devastating. That was a good piece of their nest egg that's just evaporated. So, but I mean, I will say, not to defend Coinbase, but part of the issue here is that the laws that surround all of this are just ridiculous to begin with. KYC and all of these things. All this does is turn exchanges and these sorts of institutions into honeypots that are like a natural target for people. And you can't expect, like, even if they were paying people, I don't know, 5 times as much as they were paying these, support people, like, at some point when you're talking about millions and millions and millions of dollars of people's assets, oftentimes not held on Coinbase, right? Potentially. It's very, very risky for anyone to have this kind of information about people and their money, given the way that Bitcoin works. So, I'm not hopeful that things will change anytime soon, but it's really ludicrous to force people to divulge, sensitive information that could be leaked in this kind of way. So it's pretty devastating. Coinbase, please send my parents the money that you helped them lose.
They claim on the site that it's all insured and they're going to refund customers, but they never have before. We know of lots of people back in the old days who were hacked or tricked or phished or whatever it was, and Coinbase is the part that failed. They could have said, "No, you can't withdraw this," or "No, this seems odd," anything like that, especially if your parents are withdrawing that much money and moving it from here to there. But like you said, it's just a way for the scammers to get in, and then they talked them out of some other money. They might have not even had the funds in Coinbase, like you said.
They didn't get their Coinbase money, exactly. Yep.
Yeah, hilarious. They didn't get the Coinbase money, but the Coinbase error might have led them to your parents, which led to the hack, which, of course, Coinbase is not
100%.
responsible for, but it's all,
right.
like you say, because of Coinbase having to keep KYC and then undervaluing it, which I still fought them for. But
Sure.
they're in a major security business. Like, every single hole has to be fixed, and I'm sure they saved money on support. Like, it's sad to say, but overseas is, translation inexpensive. Juan Galt, what do you think about Coinbase's latest failure?
I mean, it breaks my heart to hear that your parents got scammed, Robert. That's fucking crazy. That really, it breaks my heart. I think, I mean, to me, this is bigger than Coinbase. I think it's actually, like, the amount of traction that is getting on social media suggests that maybe we need to point the momentum towards the cause, which is, the Patriot Act, which, as far as I recall, got smuggled in right after 9/11 and basically forced every financial institution to be a surveillance arm of the US government during their attempt at imposing sanctions on everybody that, wasn't, I mean, terrorists and so on. And, fair enough. But that era is definitely past us. Tariffs don't work, Russia has been tariffed as much as you can possibly tariff more or less any country, or historically, like they've been tariffed incredibly and they still won the war and they're still kicking ass. And they, so I think the tariff regime is basically over. I think the sooner the regulators accept that, the better. I think that the outrage over this hack is just a reminder and an opportunity for us to push back against this nonsense regulation. I think politicians and regulators need to become aware that we're no longer in the age of paper banks, or of physical banks with paper KYC data. Like all this infrastructure was thought out really like the idea of authenticating users based on their name and face. This is pre-internet grade infrastructure to authenticate users. You would show up to your bank with your ID, and the guy would like compare, like they're, like when you're going to a club or whatever, and then they will let you access your money, right? That is not the world we're living today. These big tech companies, these corporations are incapable of securing customer data. And it's not just Coinbase. There's a long history of hacks that have occurred in the past 20 years. I'll read you some. Equifax 2017 exposed 147 million records, including social security numbers and addresses due to web application vulnerability. Marriott 2014 to 2018, over 300 million guest records, such as passport numbers, payment details, were stolen over 4 years. Anthem in 2015, 49 million medical records, including social security numbers and addresses. The OPM hack of 2014 is 21 million federal records, including social security numbers and fingerprints, were compromised. I could go on, and the reality is pretty much every American social security number has been hacked, like 90% of them. And this information cannot be unhacked. It is out in the dark web. The result is seen in fraud rates, in the identity fraud rates that have gone from $14 billion a year in 2012 to $50 billion a year in the US in 2020. And it will only continue. And the only solution in the age of AI, where you can impersonate and fake everything with incredible ease, the only solution is actually cryptographic money. Cryptography is the only solution, and we need to apply it to authentication. We need to apply it better. People that have significant amounts of money in Bitcoin need to move to multi-sig, need to make it so that it is very difficult for them to move their money. You shouldn't be able to move $200,000 worth of Bitcoin with a few clicks within a few hours. It should be annoyingly difficult. And but I think I think this energy that people are this anger that people are going to be feeling over the next few weeks as this sort of consequences of this social engineering hack kind of play out. I think we need to direct it at politicians and at regulators to roll back this Patriot Act bullshit that has been getting people hacked for 20 years.
It really is.
100%.
It's a major change, Juan, like you're saying, from analog to digital. In the old days, you could steal paper records one at a time. You could photocopy them. You could write down the names or steal the credit cards, make a copy of them. In the new age, the records are the same as Bitcoin. If you get access to them, you steal them all at once. You copy them all. Once they're loose, it's even worse than Bitcoin because, like you say, they can't be taken back. The social security numbers are all out there. I do think we're going to have to address KYC, but how will these institutions continue? How will Coinbase be able to report you to the IRS if they don't know your name to report you to the IRS? Seems like a major problem for their whole, white knight, we are the good guys of Bitcoin strategy, and for all the other Bitcoin holding companies as well.
I saw another company tweet about their approach, which is to create paper copies which get vaulted immediately, so split and vaulted. So there's no online copy that can just be stolen. In order to be able to get hold of people's KYC data, they'd have to go and literally get out of a safe. That seems like a slightly better option than keeping people's pictures, addresses online that you can link up with their accounts.
It's a huge problem. The whole industry, the whole legacy industry has sort of retrofitted themselves into the digital age with very poor quality processes. I mean, even if it's end-to-end encrypted and they do their best, it's just fundamentally impossible to keep this information secure. And it would honestly, I don't know, it's not going to be easy to fix this, but it would need like a deep rooted upgrade, and it starts with deregulating. Like if you stop forcing financial institutions to keep these records forever and make them quickly accessible, right? Like all the stuff that they got to do, if you stop forcing them, they'll figure it out. But right now there's a gun from the government to their head and a gun from the hackers on the other, and they're just trying to survive. And yeah, I think we just gotta roll this shit back. We gotta roll back this regulations.
Yeah, and Thomas, I would also say I think we need to move to a post income tax world. I mean, it's unconstitutional to begin with. It's immoral, but like, you know, and sadly, we may just end up with both. But I do like some of the ideas that have been floated by the Trump administration to replace the income tax with tariffs. Like, I'd rather people pay for consumption and then hopefully be more mindful about what they consume than to basically, you know, hamstring people for working hard and trying to do better in life. And also all of the accounting bullshit that goes into trying to keep track of what they earned and who they need to pay and how much. I mean, it's just, and of course, the only people who really get hosed in all this are the poor people. Wealthier people, I mean, like I have LLCs, you know, you set up a couple of LLCs and you do your taxes carefully. You're not cheating, but you can basically avoid paying a lot of what sort of, you know, average normies would pay. So it's the whole thing is a big, just big stinking pile of shit. And I pray to God that we can move past that in this world, because it's just a huge waste of time and energy.
Well, we could always tax the corporations and maybe the churches, but don't think about that. I think we also have to worry here about corporate America's attitude towards tech support and really the lowest workers. If you think about it, it's the lowest job, it's entry level, they have the worst pay, the worst hours, the worst treatment, especially with the Amazonization of work, where everything is tagged and timed and how many replies did you get out this hour and how many cases did you close. These people need access to this data. They had access to it, and from what we've read, they sold that access. So maybe they're going to have to pay tech support a lot more and treat them like humans.
But Thomas, my point is, even if you pay them 5-10x more than what they're getting, you could still find someone in that group who you could buy off, because the amount of value that you get from stealing all of that information. I mean, think they got, you know, roughly 150, 200K from my parents, from one little poor old couple, right? I mean, you multiply that by millions of people. It's just, it's like Juan said, you cannot contain that information in a digital age. And the way the world works today, it's impossible. And the incentives are just not aligned. You will always find someone who you can, you know, bribe. So I think it's an untenable and workable situation. And it has nothing, to me, really all that much to do with, you know, underpaid people. I think it's just the mechanics of how it all set up.
Well, and the people that are underpaid for these jobs, which by the way, I did customer support, I did telephone tech support. I've done a lot of it through my career, various ways. But when I started my working, this was something that I did for years. And the job sucks. It paid. I learned some stuff. It wasn't too bad, but it was not great, you know. But all those jobs are going to disappear thanks to AI. Like AI is going to replace 80% of those customer service jobs. And so the ones that remain are going to be high, you know, high experience, high expertise jobs where you're basically the end of the food chain, of the support chain, so to speak. And yeah, so I mean, I don't know if that, yeah, like I think, but it might be true that you got to pay them more, but I agree with Robert. I don't think you can pay them enough, because we're talking about boomers with millions of dollars on Coinbase that are just soft targets. You know, you can always bribe your way through that, I think.
I think it's also worth taking a look at the way that the database was likely designed, how much access the customer support people had access to it. They might have to mask that data. They might have to change the customer names, not provide access to the numbers in the account. Certainly, if you have X number of Bitcoin, they can't show that. And I think, Juan, there's a lesson to be learned there as well. When they hook up the AI, if they hook up the AI to their full database, they're really lazy about it, the AI will have these same access problems. If they're not masking this data, if they're not, looking at it from the beginning, like this customer's home address is very important, it's going to leak.
But I do think there's
No,
a bit
you're
of a
right.
problem.
And
Oh, sorry.
go ahead.
I was going to say a little problem with this theory of it's just end user customer support agents that would have hacked it, because I've worked in like one, I've worked in multiple jobs where I've had customer support and roles, and in none of those roles was I able to in any way extrapolate a whole series of data from the database. It was an individual basis, right? And half of them you had to put a comment every time you go into the account, so you know who's entered the account and what you did when, and it logs it with the system that a call came in. So I think there's a bit to this. There's probably more to this story. It's not like an individual, like a few guys that have been outsourced. This is someone who's actually had access to their database in some way, rather than just a few kind of customer support agents. It seems like there's got to be more to it.
I mean, the bottom
Yeah.
line is this information is not necessary to do business. You can send a direct deposit, or if you must, you're gonna have to buy the coin with fiat somehow. But there's already those are probably not the rails that got hacked. That information is being held there for other purposes, for compliance purposes with regulatory concerns. They're not that information is not held there out of a business purpose. And so that's the problem. It's just maladaptive. And so and like this is actually a very profound civilizational problem that if it doesn't get fixed, it's just going to keep getting worse, and it's just going to keep claiming victims. And I don't think it's customer support. I honestly don't even blame Coinbase. Coinbase is a giant. It's monstrously big. They have too many customers, and it's like I don't know that anybody in the world could keep that information safe. They are the biggest honeypot you could think of, and of course they're gonna get attacked from every angle and every direction. And if it wasn't Coinbase, it would be Binance, or it would be somebody else. And like again, like I have a list of 20 different hacks that are ridiculous that I could keep reading you. It's impossible to keep that information safe. Anybody that knows anything about cybersecurity understands it's impossible to be 1,000 people corporation and keep this kind of information secure. You can do everything you want. You're right about the AI. The AI is just going to get prompt engineered into giving that information if it's accessible to it. So we just have to, I guess, we just have to adapt, and unfortunately, we can only adapt at the speed of our most aggressive politicians, which is a huge problem.
And one of the ways they could fix this problem is with encryption, but it takes away their access to the data. As we all know, Facebook is built on advertising. They have to see your data so that they can target the ads. If they encrypted all the data on the platform, they wouldn't have access to it anymore. In the same way, if Coinbase was encrypting your account information, how much money you have, all these things, they wouldn't have access to it. They couldn't, print it out and send you mailings and things like this, which is what it's all about. And to go to what Dan and Juan were saying, I have worked at an early startup, and while I didn't have access as marketing, I do think the programmers had an extreme amount of access to the data at the company. And, fortunately it all worked out and all that. But if they had been bad, if they had been bribed, if they had been threatened, who knows what could have happened to that data. And I think a lot of early startups are this way. Maybe Coinbase had growing troubles, but they are, like Juan said, they're so big now. They should have been ready for this. And they look horrible. But we've got more on Coinbase, just a little bit more. Coinbase considered and decided against Michael Saylor's Bitcoin buying strategy. Coinbase was tempted to go in on buying Bitcoin, but considered the scheme too risky. And I think this goes back to Coinbase not understanding Bitcoin, why they would add all the altcoins, why would they have the education factory for the altcoins, why would they do all this other goofy stuff? They really don't understand Bitcoin. So even as they were right there being a Bitcoin only company or having just a couple of coins, and they could have been the ones with that huge storage of Bitcoin, but they aren't. Let's just go really quick around the horn. Dan, what do you think? It's pretty obvious, Coinbase abandoning Bitcoin, not understanding it. I remember when they pulled the funding for the San Francisco Bitcoin meetup, we just gave out pizza and beer, but they pulled the funding because they don't understand Bitcoin. Dan?
Yeah, it seems really odd to be what is realistically a shitcoin casino for them for not to have a bit more Bitcoin exposure. especially a company that started off with I think they were they Bitcoin only first of all, and then they added them. So yeah, it's strange for a company that, but they also didn't, they pushed Bitcoin Cash, right? So they didn't really have that much faith in Bitcoin, and they, for a long while, when you went on there and searched Bitcoin, you would have Bitcoin Cash as the first option that came up, which was really confusing for people. So
It has been disappointing. Dan, you send someone to Coinbase to buy Bitcoin, and they come back with some random coin because they got more. You got more random coin than you do Bitcoin. It's too expensive. Robert, what do you think about Coinbase not seeing this Michael Saylor strategy? Which is funny because all the Bitcoiners I know, they buy and hold, right? They don't. There's not much to it, and yet everyone else could copy this, right?
Yeah, I was thinking back, early days like 2014 or so. I remember thinking that Coinbase was actually kind of like a mature, cautious, is because they had Bitcoin and I think they added Litecoin and maybe two or three others. And then you had, Cryptsy and I mean, all these, just shitcoin casino kind of places. So for a while they were kind of being like the adults in a sense, or at least not as, blatant. But I guess I kind of lost interest before they threw in the towel and went all the way. I don't know. I guess they just don't, and maybe it's being like in Silicon Valley and the money and whatever, but I guess I would say they don't seem to be a very principled company, right? It's just sort of like whatever is going on that they can make a quick buck and kind of jump on the next bandwagon, clearly not understanding Bitcoin or caring enough to do the research to understand it. Strange, I don't know. It's definitely a bizarre kind of situation with that company.
Well, and how many flips they must have gone through. I know that point where you look at Bitcoin, you're like, oh, I should have bought it then. It's a whole nother, X number higher, and then it's an X number higher. And if you were working at that company, you think you'd really see it. But I really think the metaphor here, it goes back to Major League Baseball with Barry Bonds. Barry Bonds was a 5-tool player. He could steal bases. Physically, he had it all. But he looks over and he sees McGuire and Sosa on the steroids pounding out these home runs. In the same way, Coinbase, like you're saying, was seeing Cryptsy, seeing all these altcoin exchanges getting super lucky on altcoins. And they say, forget about our principles. We'll shoot the steroids too. And off they go. Coinbase offering every altcoin under the sun. Juan Galt, what do you think really quick on Coinbase not buying and holding Bitcoin like the rest of us?
Again, like I'm not trying to bash on Coinbase, but it's very impressive how many bad decisions they've made around, like apparently bad decisions, right? Like they've been on the wrong side of every fork, on the wrong side of every drama, on the wrong side of every coin, on the wrong side of you know what I mean? Like they went super all in on Ethereum, and Ethereum's just getting curb stumped. Can't say curb stumped. And they sort of went for the altcoin casino market, and the altcoins are getting crushed. Bitcoin dominance is reaching 60% or something, or more, right? Like it's impressive how they've managed to fail their way to success. And I think that the main way that they've done it is by complying really, really hard. They've really complied hard, and that's where I guess that's how you get VC money, I suppose. I don't know, but they're now the most. It's weird. It's like they try to make Bitcoin and crypto TradFi, and so that's how they managed to kind of get into the money, get into the legacy money. But the result is, they're just kind of in like the worst of both worlds. I don't envy their position, to be honest, but yeah.
It does seem that there's another universe out there where a more principled Coinbase just held Bitcoin and just didn't even need the money from the big people. Could have just held Bitcoin, sold Bitcoin, kept buying it. Meanwhile, we'd just like to say congratulations to Coinbase becoming the first Bitcoin and crypto company to join the S&P 500. They knocked out Discover Finance, which is funny in its own way. And normally we would have talked about this for the whole segment, but we can't. Moving on to issue 2. Arizona governor kills 2 crypto bills, cracks down on Bitcoin ATMs. Arizona Governor Katie Hobbs rejected bills to establish a state Bitcoin reserve and accept crypto payments, but signed a bill regulating crypto ATMs, warning people about scams with large messages on the ATMs and limits of how much you can withdraw and transfer per day. Robert Allen, what do you think about the Arizona governor vetoing 2 bills and signing the ATM protection bill?
She's damning her state. I don't know. Not smart. But I mean, I guess overall, not surprising. And I think we're further along in terms of sort of institutional understanding and adoption than I would have expected by now. Now, of course, the one thing that no one wants to talk about is, capital gains and making Bitcoin legal tender. That's really what should be talked about. That's the main thing. So that, disappoints me that we don't have more, like Lummis and these types who think, are all about Bitcoin. Like they should be pushing for that. So that disappoints me, but nonetheless, I'm kind of digressing here. Yeah, I mean, Katie hobbles her state. I don't know.
I mean, it's interesting because I do think Bitcoin will go up, but I'm just not sure about the state holding investment funds in general. Like I think Facebook stock's great or Microsoft or Apple or whatever, but I'm not saying start an Apple reserve. Yet historically, I could look at Apple stock and say, well, it's gone great. It seems like governments are more about taking money, spending it on programs. The programs are good or bad. We have a big debate about that. They should have more or less programs. We have a big debate about that. But this idea that suddenly everyone's in favor of government holding Bitcoin because we all like Bitcoin, I don't know. I don't see it. Juan Galt, what do you think about Arizona? The governor vetoed 2 bills and signed 1.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know exactly how government works at this level. I assume that they have treasuries and that they're trying to maintain a certain amount of independence. I'm assuming that they have some mandate to have like a balanced budget or a positive budget, that they don't want to be that the less in debt they are to third parties, the more sovereign that they are, the more independence they have. So like I understand why they might think, well, maybe we gotta hold some money that is a little bit more efficient in case of a rainy day, in case of some sort of, tragedy or crisis, like some sort of, an earthquake or something like that. It's like, yeah, you want to have some money in the bank as anybody else does. So I understand that side of things. I think the ATM scams are an interesting angle as well. I would love to see some data on how many people are actually getting scammed, not just in the associated with the crypto world, because this is just, the problem is that people are quite honestly tech illiterate, and then the government is entirely incapable and apathetic to protect them, it seems. Like if we're going to have governments, we might as well have governments that are efficient at chasing down criminals. And I think that the cybercrime side of things is just completely it just seems to be completely out of their scope. Like they just don't know. Like they surveil everything, and yet they can't catch any criminals. Very, very dysfunctional society and moment that we're in.
It does seem, one, like the ATM bill might not be successful. Putting warnings on there isn't going to work if the guy on the phone says he's kidnapped your family or whatever that is. I like the limits. I think limits are a good idea, but also if there's not any, education, these people just come back every day, withdraw $1,000, till the account's empty. It is interesting where you would put the controls. Like it's kind of similar to a bar where they're selling alcohol, which here in Las Vegas, we have no limits on. The bar owner is not responsible. In California, the bar owner is responsible. In this case, I don't think it's like the convenience store owner that's responsible. Maybe the person that owns and operates the ATM, maybe they're responsible. But someone somewhere has to be responsible. As soon as that happens, they have to reform the system or they'll go out of business, right?
So Bull Bitcoin has done a lot of good work on this. According to Francis, who I've talked a few times about this, they basically they have like a sort of an algorithm that flags when somebody's doing something that looks like it might be a scam. I don't know exactly what it is, and then they sort of like basically try to inform the the customer like, yo, watch out if they're making this promise or whatever. There's certain templates that these scammers use, and apparently they've managed to save quite a few customers from basically falling for these scams. So I mean, a big piece of it is education, and yeah, I mean, I think the ATMs trying to counter the scams is probably the best. Like it's an easy yield solution for now.
And I agree. That's great that they're doing that, and I laud that. It's likely that that's going to be mandatory, though, that there's going to be some kind of if a customer withdraws this much, you have to put a message up. If they're doing this, similar to kind of like cigarette advertising or alcohol advertising, we put a little message up, might make you sick. I don't know if that helps. I mean, I think this is going to be, like
That's
you're
rough.
saying, this is the fraud avenue, right? We're seeing normal people get scammed, which results in letters to Congress and angry things and so forth. And whether we like it or not, these Bitcoin ATMs are a key part of the scam.
Yeah. Well, it's the same approach as with the KYC thing, right? You're trying to weaponize, you're trying to turn businesses into surveillance apparatus and like nanny sort of state mechanisms, right? Like you're trying to get businesses to do the enforcement, whereas the government that should be hunting down criminals, right? Like I don't know, it's just incredible. It's incredible. Like something's really not working.
Agreed. And I would also just add that I think a lot of this posturing from politicians of acting like they really care about people, to me, it's more a matter of, well, sure, they want to act like they care so they can posture, but really this is about collecting data, trying to enforce, tax policy and go after people for dodging taxes. That's what I think most of this sort of stuff is about. That's what KYC is really about. That's what most likely what this Arizona ATM thing is really about. But they'll put it under the guise of protection, and like everything with government, it's all smoke and mirrors and lies.
Previously, we've seen limits on your account put there for anti-money laundering, i.e. anti-drug cartels. Obviously, none of us are in a drug cartel. It's pretty obvious, but we still are under the same you can't pull money out of your account type laws, which shocks a lot of people. And I would agree, Robert, a lot of these controls, which I agree might slow down the scammer, would also slow down someone looking to transfer their life savings into Bitcoin or other legitimate investment things which people might have if they have more than 10K or 5K or whatever. You're really limiting them. But at the same time, we're trying to protect, or the government's trying to protect the poor people who have nothing and are feeding their money endlessly into the machine. Let's go to Dan Eve just a little bit more on this before we move to the next issue. What do you think about Arizona? They're not going to have a Bitcoin reserve, at least now, and they've passed this ATM bill. They've also said no to crypto payments. Nobody talked about that. But
yeah, so I think from a treasury perspective, when we GPT'd it a few weeks ago, it seemed like not that a lot of the states actually have their own treasury. I think Texas was one of the exceptions that had gold specifically in terms of holding other non-dollar assets. So I mean that wouldn't surprise me that Arizona would come down like that. And with the protections, like we said, it's very much for show, right? It's either for show, saying we care about you, we're trying to protect you here, or because people don't really take notice of these things, like and I don't know how much research has been done, but it's like I don't know if you have it in the US, but in the UK, we have pictures of like people's like lungs falling apart on cigarettes, and that literally stops no one, like no one. So I mean, I don't know what the stats are for it, but now they've actually in the UK we now have all tobacco hidden behind like behind a barrier, like you can't even see the what tobacco products are on sale. They have to lift up a thing and then put it back down again after you ask for something. So it's all pretty strange in that respect. But it is for show, right? It's saying we care about you. But I'm with one on that it's all about data. It's data mining. It's so that they can have more information so that they know who to go after with tax. In the UK, I think they're actually going further now. I think Coinbase from 2026 or any crypto exchange that deals with the UK actually has to submit information direct to HMRC like the banks formally do at the moment. So we're seeing that ramping up over this side of the pond too. But we've had a friend that had a Bitcoin ATM, and there are horror stories. There was he said there was multiple times when like a little old lady would come in all shaking and say that, I've got to come to someone said I've got to go to the ATM, a Bitcoin ATM, and send this to this, and that she's got like an instruction list that's been given to her, and she's been, defrauded, and he's had to, he's literally tried to convince and say, look, no, this is fraud, and he's had to literally pull the plug off the machine, because they won't believe him anyway, because they're like, I have to do this. So whether that's because she's been threatened in some way or something like that. So, I mean, yeah, measures are good to prevent fraud. We know that in terms of crypto, we've seen some of the biggest hacks in history. So we know that there is a problem with hacking and fraud, but it's what steps actually work, and we don't need the ones that are just putting up a face. We want steps that actually work and measures that actually work, not the ones that are just put there to look like they're working or to mine more data for tax.
Yeah, and I just in case I have to leave soon because it's I have a meeting at the turn of an hour, but I think if you take a step back further, this is sort of a symptom of how atomized our society has become, that grandma would be walking with a bag of cash to an ATM to send Bitcoin to a scammer, and there's no family around her to guide her and to sort of protect her, right? Like what has happened, where are her kids? Did she have kids? I don't know, right? Like this is sort of the state of things where basically what I'm actually trying to say is, like, if you have family, if you have boomer parents, if you're the tech savvy person in your family, we're going to suffer the consequences of them getting scammed anyway. So we're going to have to like really keep an eye on that. And, I don't think it's very easy to sort of forget, but like the older generation, they really are very tech illiterate. Like, they might have had, like for my parents, they sort of got into computers in the 90s a little bit, but today's technology is still alien to them in a way, right? And so, of course, grandma doesn't know the difference between, like, I don't know, going to the bank or using a banking app and using Bitcoin at this point. They're both entirely technically illegible, ridiculous interfaces, and they grew up in an era where you showed up to the bank and people were nice to you, right? So, I think people kind of need to. Well, I mean, you're gonna suffer the consequences anyway, right? If your parents or whoever's in your family takes a hit like that.
All right. Well, Juan, I know you've got to go to your meeting. Thanks for being on the show. Do you want to do a story of the week or anything going out? Go ahead, Juan.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I mean, the story of the week is Coinbase for sure. I think I liked something positive. I posted an article on Bitcoin Magazine about Hash League. It's a hackathon product that won the Bitcoin Plus Plus hackathon in Austin, and it's cool. Like, you can sort of point your BitAxe at a local mining pool in your city that you can bootstrap with your friends, and you can compete between cities to, like, see who gets the most hash rate. There's a lot of cool technology on that front that's sort of being developed and might help decentralize mining on the BitX side of things as well. So yeah, that's a cool, fun story. You can find it at bitcoinmagazine.com. Look up Juan Galt.
All right, great. Thanks, Juan, for being on the show. Enjoy your meeting.
Thanks,
Going
guys.
back to this topic, I agree with what Dan was saying. You could put a skull and crossbones on there, and people are still going to put their money in. I was going to tell the same story Dan said about our friend. You pretty much have to unplug the machine. And since I'm sure that the convenience stores get a cut of the money, they're not all going to have the morals and the ethics necessary to unplug the machine. And again, these scams are not old. They used to do them with cash. You do the same thing. The little old lady goes to the store, gets the cash, puts it in a box, FedExes it to you, stuff like that. This all happened before. Even the taking over your computer, locking it down. They used to have those where you'd send the money to an address. So this happened before Bitcoin. It's just Bitcoin makes it so much easier because you could send the money over the network, right? You can just send it right there and it's gone. Check out World Crypto Network where we've got more shorts. And it looks like we've got shorts with Ben and Ben and Ben and one with Dan. So check out worldcryptonetwork.com. Go and subscribe on the YouTube. We've got shorts. Moving on to lightning issues. We've just got some quick stories. We're going to go around the horn, get your guys' reactions here. Bitcoin Magazine says just in, fast food giant Steak and Shake is now officially accepting Bitcoin Lightning Network payments. Dan, Eve, how cool is that? You can get Steak and Shake.
That's cool. I like these stories. This is another classic like thing we've been yearning for, right? Somewhere to spend Bitcoin. And obviously, the narrative's changed slightly. It used to be spend Bitcoin. Now it's hold the Bitcoin, but still it's nice to be able to use it in places. And everyone I'm sure has a little Lightning wallet with a few credits on there for mini purchases. So and for conferences and stuff like that. So I think this is a great idea. And also it's getting the logo out there, right? That's one of the reasons why we wanted businesses to be accepting Bitcoin was because you wanted that Bitcoin logo in there next to MasterCard, next to Visa, next to Amex.
There has been interesting confusion, though, when they keep saying they're accepting Bitcoin payments when they're really accepting Lightning. And I think we're having a lot of brand confusion there. So that's going to continue to be a problem. Robert, really quick, what do you think? Steak and Shake, Lightning payments?
Well, I also heard, I believe that they are using beef tallow for their fries and some of their food now. So that's quite interesting. I'm a big fan of beef tallow. I don't like seed oils. So yeah, I've not been in the States for a while, and I don't know when I'll be back, but the next time I'm in the United States, I will likely stop by Steak and Shake, and it would be fun to be able to pay with Bitcoin. I mean, it is a Bitcoin payment. It's over the Lightning Network. I would still say it is a Bitcoin payment. But yeah, I mean, to that point, I think we're starting to get to this like, BitKit, Phoenix. There's quite a few wallets now that are making it pretty easy to kind of move between on-chain and Lightning. So hopefully, for the people who do go and actually try to pay, there's not too much confusion. And I think it'll get better over time, but yeah, it's very cool. And they've got, I think I saw a map, a BTC map, was, basically saying, hey, we got work to do. Yeah, I think they've got thousands, at least hundreds, many hundreds of locations, if not maybe thousands in the United States. So it's great. It's a huge brand awareness thing, and it's exciting.
I will note I did see something about it being for the first million customers. I'm not sure if it's a permanent program yet. It's being announced as a permanent program, but I saw one announcement with a kind of limit on it. So let's double check that, everyone. I do think it's great. As for the beef tallow, it is interesting. McDonald's originally had that in their French fries, gotten a lot of trouble from vegetarians who thought they were eating a vegetarian food, but when they didn't know or whatever, it had beef tallow. But there's been a big change in that. That they don't use that anymore. But let's keep it going. Jack Mallers and his new company, 21 Capital and Tether, bought 4,812 Bitcoin for $458 million. We also had a major buy from Metaplanet, the Japanese company, which bought 1,241 Bitcoin for 18.4 billion yen. Robert Allen, what do you think about these large companies continuing to adopt the Pirate at 40 strategy of I'll hold your Bitcoin for you with their treasuries and other things?
I mean, obviously Saylor has shown that it can work quite well. I think it's, his strategy is the best performing stock for a couple of years now, I believe. Makes a ton of sense. I mean, I definitely feel FOMO. I feel, pain thinking about all those Bitcoins that are likely not going to be on the market anytime soon. But yeah, it's good. I want to see more companies do it. I think makes a ton of sense, right? I mean, if you're on a Bitcoin standard, you should put your company on a Bitcoin standard.
Dan, Eve, what do you think? They're going to hold Bitcoin on the balance sheets?
Yeah, especially for as Robert's saying for the Bitcoin based companies, if you walk the walk, if you talk the talk, walk the walk, right? But it seems a bit strange when you see some random like game studio that suddenly buys up, or like but they're trying to perhaps pump their stock price a little bit. But it's just a sensible thing to do to hedge your bets, considering it's the new hard money. It does seem like we are switching into this we've gone from ICOs and stuff to shit coins and now people going, well, just buy my company, which is buying Bitcoin. and the real message should just be buy Bitcoin and hold Bitcoin, right? Because now we've also got this risk that we're seeing from such a big company, Coinbase. This hack from Coinbase. So it's another lesson that you should hold your own cryptocurrency. But then you've got the flip side of that, right? Which is these kidnappings that happen, because if you don't hold your own crypto, no one can steal it from you. And if you're on an exchange, it's a lot harder to get it out, right? There's more hoops to jump through. So, man, it's really becoming a confusing environment to be in.
Well, I do think it's better off a company than a state, because a company is trying to maximize profits. So I support them holding Bitcoin, whereas a state is trying, like I said, more programs, less programs, programs you like, programs you don't like. I do fear again that we're going down the Ice 9 infinite jest nightmare scenario, where why even bother making things if you can just hold Bitcoin? I don't know what these companies do, but my theoretically understanding, because of Bitcoin going up in the past and going up in the future, is that there's no reason to make these widgets. Everyone that you have working for you for widgets, all fired. Don't make any more widgets. Don't make any more games. In Infinite Jest, he talked about a movie that was so addictive that once you started watching the movie, you would stop eating, you would stop showering, you'd stop caring for yourself. You would just keep watching the movie. And I think that we found the business version of Infinite Jest, the business addictive movie, where once they start thinking about these Bitcoin profits, why even have a secretary? Like, every single expense of your business, including your CEO, Michael Saylor, is a waste. You should take all that money and put it into Bitcoin. Every single physical location, everything but, I would say, the accountant at the end of the day and the security person or team managing the Bitcoin is pointless. And it's kind of scary to see that keep coming up. Robert, I can see you over there. What do you think about my theory of addictive movie business?
Sounds like a fun book. I mean, I think Bitcoin, as it is monetized, is going to be hard to compete with. When you compare it to just about any investment, it's going to outcompete. But that S curve is going to flatten eventually, maybe when it's many, many millions of dollars. But in other words, there's I forget who wrote the article, but this is basically the speculative attack on Bitcoin, where you borrow money and you at a cheap financing rate, you buy Bitcoin, you figure out a way to pay that money back, you just keep doing it, and you are you're basically destroying the fiat system with its own mechanism, because it cannot it cannot sustain itself against Bitcoin. Bitcoin is going to just suck all the monetary value to itself. Once that's completed, though, which maybe 10, 20, 30 years from now, then I think this theory wouldn't work anymore. You know what I mean? So it's sort of like it's a black hole that's got so much matter that it can pull into itself, to use a metaphor. And then once that's accomplished, once that's completed, then you would have to start being productive again in terms of actually doing something. So that would be my take. I think it's ultimately a good thing, and honestly, the faster it happens, probably the better, because within reason. But the sooner we drain the fiat system of its power, the sooner we can live on a Bitcoin standard, which is better for the entire planet.
I do see the addictive cycle out there forming, that they must buy because of the profits. Every time they buy, they get less Bitcoin. So they must buy because of the profits. And it burns and burns and burns. I don't know when it's going to stop. I don't know if people are really going to stop producing things like Infinite Jest. Our eyes will just glaze over. Everyone will watch the Bitcoin ticker all day instead of doing work. And of course, the Vonnegut book, Cat's Cradle, where AI did all the work anyway. So we're coming to head of a lot of sci-fi books, a lot happening. We've still got a few more quick stories. Robinhood woos Canadian crypto users with nearly $180 million WonderFi purchase. Of course, obviously, given the last topic, they could have just bought Bitcoin instead. Meta, with Facebook, WhatsApp, and Instagram, according to CNBC, is planning to enable crypto stablecoin payments for their 3.35 billion users. Massive for adoption. And finally, The BlackRock company has met with the SEC Crypto Task Force to discuss staking, options, tokenization, and ETF approval standards. It's all happening in crypto. Dan, Eve, what do you think? Robinhood, Meta adding stablecoin payments, or BlackRock meeting with the task force?
Oh, I think on the Meta adding stablecoin payments. I mean, it seems like a relatively smart move, and they have been dabbling. Obviously, Bitcoin would be better. They've been dabbling in the crypto space for a while. First, in terms of thinking about it, since they had that stab at Libra. But what I thought was good was how the show that covered it. Was it MSNBC, but how they acknowledged the fact that Libra was a centralized coin, and I think the quote even was something like, "Why even it's centralized? Why even bother? Why not just hold Bitcoin?" So at least you're seeing the mainstream news companies now acknowledging the fact that Bitcoin is the one, right? It's and it's good. It's kind of a step forward that they're digitizing in some way using stable coins, but ultimately, Bitcoin is king, and you can understand though that maybe not with Meta specifically, but why some smaller companies want to hold back a little on Bitcoin because of the risk involved. But Meta's a huge company; they can take a few risks here and there, and imagine if they had done. I mean, look at the Winklevi twins, right? When they forked from Facebook, as it were, and now they're some of the biggest holders of Bitcoin on earth. So they should have taken a leaf out of the. They should have stolen, returned the favor and stolen another little Winklevi idea. I don't know who actually was who was wrong in all that, but they should have bought some Bitcoin, basically. Meta, Facebook, whoever.
Robert Allen, what do you think? Robinhood is buying a Canadian company, and the SEC's meeting with BlackRock.
I don't know if I have a lot to say about those. I do like the Meta Facebook piece. Yeah, I guess what I kind of think, if I were to predict the next 5-10 years, I think if this happens, and maybe a few other companies move in this direction with stable coins, in particular, I'm guessing it's going to be the dollar, then I think we're going to see a lot of kind of second tier. Bye, Thomas. We're going to see a lot of other fiat currencies basically collapse more quickly because for example, I'm in Nigeria right now, and the Naira is a mess. I mean, they've lost. I think 2 years ago it was 2 years ago it was about 500 to $1, and today it's 1620 to 1. I think I saw. So basically, the stablecoin move is going to first, I think, pull a lot of the fiat value to the dollar, and then, but my further prediction would be that the dollar will then be sucked into Bitcoin in terms of the value of the dollar ultimately collapsing as well. So this might prop up the dollar for a few more years. That's basically what I'm trying to say. Sounds like the U.S. government is again tapping into Facebook as one of their agencies, which it clearly is.
You also have to like that it's stable coins. Many people will hold it thinking that they're going to get rich, and then it won't go up or down, and they'll be all confused. And I thought I had Bitcoin, robble. I'll talk a little bit about the ones no one talked about. I think it's always fun to kick on and make fun of Robinhood. They were big during the GameStop debacle. They stopped people from buying and selling GameStop stock. And they also were critical of crypto, sleeping on it forever. It's funny to see them now trying to get it back by buying this Canadian company. Of course, I wonder, as everyone does here, we just talked about the Bitcoin treasury issue. Will Robinhood make more from buying the Canadian company than from holding Bitcoin? I think it's going to be hard to top the Bitcoin earnings. It's going to be hard for them to justify this purchase in the future. As for BlackRock, it's just more good news for Bitcoin. Kind of major finance companies are now meeting with the SEC, which is progress. Maybe they move things forward, but also not progress, because we all know they want to move things forward so they have a monopoly so they can get all the fees. That's standard business practice. We're running a little out of time, but I want to go to the Bitcoin predictor ball. I want you guys to tell me, will the price of Bitcoin be higher or lower this time next week? Dan Eve.
Higher. All-time high.
Robert Allen, higher or lower?
Always higher.
I like higher too. It's always my pick. Sometimes I'm wrong though. Checking out the ball. Will the price of Bitcoin be higher at this time next week? And it says most. Yep. Yeah, I'm going to go with most. Most likely. The ball is positive. Most likely. We've got a couple more stories here. Checking in with another company planning to hold tons of Bitcoin. David Bailey and holding company Nakamoto raises $710 million and announces a merger with Kindly MD to establish a Bitcoin treasury. He also went on CNBC and claimed that his company will sell their Bitcoin. If the stock trades at a discount, they will buy more Bitcoin. If the stock trades the other direction, this could be a dangerous strategy. We'll go through this and then we'll go to one more story. Really quick, Dan Eve, what do you think? David Bailey, and mainly the strategy for one of these large Bitcoin holding companies, doesn't have to be his one, could be anyone, buying and selling the Bitcoin rather than just hold it. What do you think, Dan?
Did I read this right? Is David Bailey like the new crypto advisor for the US? Is that right? Or is it someone else?
They've said he's a Trump crypto advisor, just generally. He does run, for full disclosure, he runs, he bought Bitcoin Magazine from other people. Yeah. He runs the Bitcoin conference, which is a major conference. He was in many ways responsible, invited Trump to speak at the conference, supported him and so forth, probably hooked him up with donors and things. So they call him a crypto advisor. I don't know that he has an official position with the Trump administration.
Right. Didn't I read that he also had to he sold his crypto off because of conflict of interest, but then
if he took a position, that could be, but I don't personally know of a position that he had.
Okay, maybe I misread that because it kind of seems like if he did, and now he's creating a company that holds Bitcoin, there's that kind of sideskirting that conflict of interest maybe, but I mean, like I said earlier, it seems like we've gone to the new ICO craze. Really, is for people to be setting up a Bitcoin company that just buys Bitcoin and doesn't do much else. If they're dumping it, then obviously that's not going to be good for the markets. But it seems like even when they're buying now, these institutions, they're not going to be buying from the order book, right? They're buying off of OTC, so it's not having these big buys and sells that we're hearing about, aren't having as big a swing as they would usually if you just got to go onto the exchange and buy a bunch in chunks. So it's good that there's more awareness out there, but again, it just seems like buy the Bitcoin yourself and hold it. It's a lesson.
I do think it's strange. It kind of reminds me of Coinbase, how we talked about them not having faith in Bitcoin. And I know from working at Bitcoin startups back in the day, many people that worked at those companies did not have faith in Bitcoin. They would get their salary, they would sell it immediately. They would not take it and buy Bitcoin like maybe you or I would. And I think that's interesting that this lack of Bitcoin DNA gets into these companies, then they make terrible decisions, and then they have to change them with this. Even though Bitcoin Magazine is a recent purchase, I would have thought that the original Bitcoin Magazine would have had a Bitcoin reserve, and maybe the new Bitcoin Magazine could have a Bitcoin reserve to preserve the ability to make their message, the ability to run the magazine, stuff like that, keeping the webpage online, something there. And maybe they could build it out of there. I think because we don't see that, we can assume Bitcoin Magazine didn't have a Bitcoin reserve now or after the takeover. They might not have believed in it in the same way that maybe World Crypto Network did, and so forth. Robert Allen, what do you think about?
Sorry, just quickly, Dusty Gray's corrected me. Sorry, it wasn't David Bailey, it was David Sachs. So I got that wrong. David Sachs was the advisor that had to sell his crypto. So
there you go. And David Sachs was from the PayPal mafia, longtime PayPaler, probably doing very well. I don't cry for his portfolio. Robert, what do you think about Bitcoin Magazine likely not having a reserve and this new Nakamoto's company having nothing to do with press or freedom or anything, just kind of making money like all the other Bitcoin holding companies we see these days?
Well, I'm still trying to wrap my head around this if I understand what you read correctly, if the value of the company drops below the value of their Bitcoin holdings, they will sell Bitcoin. So what would be the purpose of that? Is that to
buy
I
back
believe they're
shares.
gonna, yeah, they're
buy
gonna
back
sell.
shares?
Yep. So they will sell the Bitcoin, buy the shares,
Oh,
and
I
then
see. I didn't
shares
catch
would
that
go
part.
up, and
Okay.
then presumably when the Bitcoin goes back up, they'd sell the shares and buy the Bitcoin. So they're balancing it back and forth, which to the layman sounds okay in a fair market. But as Adam Back pointed out in the Twitter comments to this, it's not a fair market. If somebody knows that you're holding and it has to stay above 500, they might just use all of their money to make it go to 490 to make you lose. They might knock you out of your position. They might move the market faster than you can recover. There's a lot of things I think that savvy market players could do against this company with their strange stated advice. So I do think it stands out. Robert, what do you think?
Yeah. I need to think about it more and kind of walk through the thinking, and it's just new to me, and it's the first I've heard of it today. But yeah, I mean, it sounds a bit dangerous. Yeah, as you said, maybe would open them up to some sorts of manipulation. But anyway, it's it's a fresh take. I'll give them that.
It is, and it's kind of a surprise. The other ones were just going with the Saylor or Mahler's now strategy of buy and hold. It seems a lot more complicated to go with this buy and sell sometimes, buy some other times, back and forth. Maybe they're quick, maybe they're fast, maybe they have fast transactions. They're smarter. They've thought of all these things. I'm just not sure. And we do have one more story. Unfortunately, we have to get political. According to the New York Times, a $300 million purchase of the Trump crypto coin from a small Chinese company that no one has ever heard of before. This company, they say China, but it's actually this company is buying the crypto scam to gain influence, corruption, plain and simple. We talked about this before, how a trucking company was going to forego the traditional lobbying to instead buy the Trump coin and then tell him that they'd bought the coin and then request the markets to Mexico be reopened. We've talked about this theoretically as something that could happen with a presidential or celebrity or other type coin, but now we see it actually happening in real time. Dan, Eve, what do you think? I mean, obviously it's legal. If the president does it, it's illegal. They've kind of cleared the way for these meme coins in the new administration, but it sure does look pretty bad. Go ahead, Dan.
Well, I mean, like it's those meme coins really did kill that meme coin market. So in a way, you've got to kind of thank them, because there was some crazy stuff going on with Pump.Fun. But now it seems like that's with the that coupled with the $400 million jet gift. There does seem like there's a bit of funniness going on, but obviously it I don't know how they bought it. Does it say how? Does it say how they didn't just like market buy, right? Did they do it? Did they do an OTC deal with Trump? Does it detail that?
It doesn't seem clear if it's a market buy or not, but it does. If you own 80% of the currency, anyone buying it is kind of like a donation to you. So it certainly does support their currency.
Or maybe they're using it because isn't there some sort of like Trump coin party, so that if you have over a certain amount, did I read that you have a certain amount?
They did have a competition recently. The largest holder of the coin would receive dinner with the president, which just seemed again directly a quid pro quo, this for that, which previously was illegal under many bribery type laws. It's unclear what's going to happen in the future. Yeah,
it's a new America.
it is exciting. You can buy anything you want. Robert Allen, what do you think? They donated to the Trump coin, perhaps purchasing him directly.
Well, I guess if you're gonna have corruption, if you can at least see it, maybe it's a little better instead of it like under the table,
Corruption on chain.
Yeah, exactly. On-chain corruption, at least, yeah, it's clear who's doing it, or I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it's a brave new world we're living in here.
It is hard to square with the talk of the Biden crime family, who obviously took so much less when compared to this 300 million, the airplane at 400 million, the Jared Kushner company at $2 billion in investment from Saudi and UAE, etc. So much greater numbers so much less upset. It's very strange. Yes.
Well, I mean, to be fair, like this is out in the open though. That's my point, right? I mean,
But if I'm robbing you in
Yeah.
the street, like I'm still robbing you. If I'm robbing you at home, I'm robbing you in the street. I'm still robbing you. Like, come on, man.
yeah, but I mean, yeah, I'd rather it be open. That's all I'm saying. I'll give it to Trump for at least,
Putting his
there's no
balls on the
question.
table.
Yeah.
Don't say that. It's still a crime. Just say you like him for other things, but you wish he wouldn't commit crimes. You wish he wouldn't commit open bribes. Like,
No,
it's
wait.
like the numbers keep getting bigger. It's like
is it a crime?
300, 400, 2 billion. Like, where's the number where you're like, I think you took too much. Like that last one, the
So
airplane.
you're saying that you can't take a gift? At what time? How do you distinguish
Yes,
between a
I'm
gift
saying
and
yes. I'm saying you absolutely can't take a gift. It's called the emoluments clause. You cannot take a gift.
A giant flying gold gift.
20, 30 years. Like senators can't take a piece of pizza. Workers can't take a free lunch. Like you can't take a gift. Like yes. you can.
except they all do. So I mean, that's
Again,
clearly
it's not
that's-
about whether they all do. Like it's about
clearly not a law though. Like if
You have
no
to
one
just say,
actually
like,
does it,
for you to be intellectual honest, you just have to say, I wish you wouldn't do this. This one's not so good.
Yeah, is it a law? Is it law? Or is it company?
It's a law. It's a law.
Procedure.
A law.
Okay, so it's actually
like all the other laws, they don't follow. Look, I just don't get stressed about it. I expect politicians are going to be crooked and corrupt. I don't know. It doesn't, like, I'm not saying I think it's great. I guess I don't think that much about it either way because it doesn't surprise me.
We can't just say we expect everyone to steal, so we're not going to have laws against stealing. That's just not how it works.
But
Here's what it
Trump
says.
taking a
That's
plane is not
Constitution.
stealing from
It
me. I mean,
prohibits federal office holders from accepting gifts, emoluments, offices, or titles from foreign states without the consent of Congress. So what this says in plain English, he can have the plane if Congress says it's okay. All right? So that's all he has to do is say to Congress, $400 million airplane, which again, if it was a donation to the United States of America, we would keep it. And the next president, perhaps Vice President J.D. Vance, would fly around in the airplane. Cool, right? That's not what they worked out with the airplane. I didn't want to talk about the airplane, but no, they worked out where it goes to the Trump library where he could perhaps continue flying it, which changes it from a gift to the United States to a gift to Donald Trump personally, which is really, 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 really a violation of this. Like prohibiting all gifts is not about size or that you really need an airplane or so forth, like, which I don't want to talk about this. But with the other thing in the crypto, like it's not better if it's in the public, like the crime, like it's still a crime. Like it's still a crime, Robert. Like it's not better. Like it's not like a sneaky new kind of crime to like, it's just that there's so many crimes out there, they can't seem to stop them. There seems to be no law, which is a bigger problem.
Would he get impeached for that? How does that, if it is, how does that work? Is that an impeachment thing?
It's absolutely, yeah, it would be an impeachable offense.
How come they're not doing it right? Because
the main thing, right now, the Republicans hold both houses of Congress, and they've decided not to uphold impeachable offenses and also not to protect the power of the purse, which is a larger issue where Congress says, okay, we're going to spend $10 billion on this program. And again, you disagree with the program, you agree with the program. That's separate. Congress said, spend the money. What's happened recently is that the executive branch, the president, has come in and said the money won't be spent. And that's not their position in the government. The position is Congress spends the money. Now, the Republicans have decided not to get upset about this, which is very interesting and completely unexpected through all of political history. The founding fathers assumed that the congressmen would stand up for their power, right? They made that program. That program goes to their district. Like it or don't like it, it's for this, it's for that, whatever. Congress made the program. It could be to buy missiles, could be to buy school lunches. You disagree with it, you agree with it. They spent the money's supposed to be spent. He doesn't have the power to stop that money. He has done that. So I don't know what's going to happen in the future, but this thing, yeah, it's the gift, and it would be better if it was a gift to the United States. Even that goes not to say anything about how they're going to have to take the airplane apart to search for bugs and for sabotage and for other things. And then there's also this other thing where I hate to be, Johnny military logic who read the Tom Clancy books, but one of the things the Air Force One does is that we have two of them. which is an obvious decoy. We can put one here and one there, and you don't know where the president is. And in a crisis, that could be very valuable, right? So we're going to need two of these goofy flying palace planes if we want to be in any way protective of the chief, whoever he is. So yeah, it's a big mess. The buying him with the NFTs is not good either. And yeah, it doesn't help that it's in public. Like it just, no. But let's finish up here. Let's move on to predictions or story of the week. Dan, Eve, do you have a prediction or a story of the week? Go ahead.
My story of the week was that I went to the Powwow 10-year meetup on Wednesday, which is really cool. So it's the 10-year anniversary of the Bitcoin Powwow group, and which is just a little Bitcoin group on Signal, or wasn't Signal, was on WhatsApp. I think it was on something else before, like IRC or something. But yeah, it was cool. So I performed for the first time, performed my rap, the new one, which went horrifically wrong because I still learning the lyrics to it, and I pulled up the wrong edit of lyrics and was a complete twat. But people said it went okay, so I'm happy with that. And then I got invited to sing it or entertain. I'm not a singer or a rapper. Entertain a Bitcoin festival in Hemel Hempstead on the 15th of June. But I don't think I can't make it because it's my son's birthday. But if you can, there is a Bitcoin festival in Hemel Hempstead on the 15th of June. So check it out if you're in London. Near London.
That's very cool, Dan. Shout out to the powwow groups connecting Bitcoiners for 10 years. That's excellent. I always tell people about how I go to the conference and our friend adds us to the powwow group, and then I know where all the meetups are and meetings at the bar and what time the events are and stuff like that. So it's great to have that connection for people. In 10 years is a long time to be connecting people. So that's really great. Shout out to our friend who runs the powwow groups. Let's go to Robert Allen, a prediction or a story of the week. Go ahead.
Well, I'm going to the Afro Bitcoin conference in Mauritius in December. So if anyone wants to come hang out, looks like a nice place. I've never been. So that's my story. And also I just got word that I'm going to be flying on Trump's new plane. So I'll be sure to send a couple photos.
For real, man? Are you going to fly on the plane? I'm curious.
No, I'm not.
All right. You got me, man. Stranger things have happened, man. I don't put
Someone's
anything.
gonna say, can you get me?
I know, man. Give me a picture of the toilet. I don't know, but no, that's awesome. And what about the Africa conference? What size do you expect it to be? Have you been before? Any information about it? Certainly, does it have a right-wing speaking group like our conference in Vegas?
Yeah, I don't know honestly too much. I didn't make it last year. I was considering going, but I couldn't make it. So I think it's on the smaller side. I would guess maybe a few hundred people. Max would be my expectation. It might even be as small as 100. But yeah, I think it'll be interesting. You know, I'm living in Nigeria now, and I'm reviving my CoinCube brand to basically try to offer brokerage services to Nigerians. So there's what I've found living in Africa is there are a lot of crypto people. Well, I guess this is true everywhere, really, but a lot of people who use, are just into quote crypto. A lot of them just day trade and lose their money in scams. And then you have the older generation here who, like in the United States, they have most of the money, but they're older and less tech savvy and afraid and uncertain and da 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 da. So my hope is to onboard the kind of grayer part of the population, help them to protect some of their money from the very high inflation. I was saying, I think when you were off the earlier, like 2 years ago, the Naira was about $500 to $1. Today it's 1620 to 1. So I mean, it's devastating inflation here. And so yeah, the people here need Bitcoin. So that's what I'm working on now, and amongst a few other little things. But gonna go try to meet more Bitcoiners and enjoy myself in in a nice sunny beachy place for the holidays. So.
Well, that sounds fantastic, Robert. And we all know Andreas used to talk all the time about the developing countries being the ones that actually needed Bitcoin. Here in the United States, we had a lot of inflation for sure, but not 500% to 1620, like losing 2/3 of your money or losing a third of it. Huge deal, huge deal. And especially remember, you worked for that money, you saved it, you did the right thing, and then you get hit by this invisible tax that takes all your funds. And, sure, Bitcoin goes up and down, but theoretically over 5 years, they would be better served holding, some of their savings in Bitcoin, and hopefully we're giving them the information and the access to make their own decisions on this. And Andreas always talked about it. I always lauded him for it. I always thought it was great.
Yeah,
and we
me
miss
too.
him. We miss him today. He's not I look around at all the new crypto Bitcoin people, and I don't see Andreas, and I don't see a copy of Andreas, and I don't see someone just kind of carrying his flag. And even with, I know he has an organization and he has people that work for him and stuff. I just don't see it. I don't see him out there. I don't see them out there. I don't see the Antonopoulos Foundation or whatever it may be. I hear a lot from Vitalik and from these business people and from Jack Mallers, who used to watch Mad Bitcoins, and many other people. But I don't hear from old Andreas. Yeah.
So is Andreas, you think he's like semi-retired now, or what? What's your take?
He hasn't tweeted since December, and then before that was April last year. So he seems maybe when he got that Bitcoin donated to him, maybe he finally thought, shit, I'm rich, I'm giving up now, right?
Whenever I look at his Twitter, it seems like there's a lot of activity and he's having like meetups and stuff, but it seems very like kind of corporate and polished. And I imagine that's what they want. But it's very different than like a one-man direct thing. And I do think he had a lot of what we're seeing and what the first issue, going back to the beginning of the show, the potential problems with Coinbase. I think Andreas had all those problems early. People thought he was incredibly well off. I don't think he was. Other people are stalkers or bad people or chasing him or whatever, or being strange to him in person and stuff. So I think he had a lot of that. And probably freaked him out. He probably moved along. But I wish there were books. I wish there were, I don't know, he has the books of his speeches and stuff, and he's obviously done a lot. And you can't say you have to do more or whatever, but
maybe
I wish for more. I wish for more.
Maybe
he's a great guy.
After working on mastering Bitcoin and mastering Ethereum, he's working on his latest book, Mastering Corruption on Chain.
I miss him too. And I mean, he's one of the reasons I got into Bitcoin. He was one of the first people that really pulled me in, along with reading the white paper and some other things, and watching your show as well, Thomas. You were the first, I think, kind of Bitcoin commentary show that I got into. So amazing to be on it all these years later. Who would have thought?
Yeah,
it was very cool. We had Andreas on some of our early shows, and he's always really great to us, and he's a great guy.
And Trace, another one that's an old schooler. He was the first. It was what Mad Bitcoins and Trace Mayer's Run to Gold podcast that got me into Bitcoin, and Trace has disappeared too now, right?
Well, we don't know what's going to become of it.
I heard he was coming back.
He was listed as a speaker at the new Bitcoin conference in Las Vegas, like we mentioned before, kind of a right-wing Bitcoin conference at this point, with the vice president speaking, the president's two sons speaking, the president's crypto advisor speaking, several businessmen such as Michael Saylor, and you mentioned before crypto Senator Cynthia Loomis will be speaking. And the lone cypherpunk, if you can call him that, is Jack Mallers with his hoodie. But even he comes from a prestigious banking family. Not his fault, but that is a fact. So,
when's that conference? Is it this?
That's at the end of the month. I think it's the 27th through 29th. Let's see if I'll try to pull it up here. I am going to be going. I don't think they know about it, but I did receive a free ticket from a friend, and I live near Vegas, so I can go check it out. Here's the conference. As I said, not my position that it's all kind of right.
You're going to be in your element there.
It is certainly a strange place to be. I'm a polite, nice dude though. So
and now wait a minute. To be fair, you left out Ross.
Oh yeah, Ross. Yeah,
that's right. I forgot.
Ross is pretty OG.
Ross is an OG, without doubt.
Oh yeah.
And it's interesting though, because you see Ross, or at least they might have photoshopped this, but he's dressed in a very sharp business suit like everyone else, except for Mr. Mallers. We also have David Bailey. I mean, I'm sure you're a cool dude, but he kind of put himself on the left on the front of his page. So that's the guy that runs Bitcoin Magazine and runs the conference. But that's cool.
Well, he's using his brand to market himself, I guess.
Amen. Why not? I agree with you, Robert. I agree. I would do the same. If this was me, it would be Mad Bitcoins next to, I don't know, AOC or whoever we'd have. But no, that's the conference, and they say they're having Trace which I'm excited about. So I also have Adam Back, friend of the show, Jack Mahler's friend of the show. If you go view all, it's got the same guys. But then down here, past
Peter
the
Schiff.
Oh, it's got that Brian Johnson guy as well.
Wait a minute. That's not, is that real?
yeah, Peter Schiff, Bitcoin hater.
You know, I used to work for Peter. Yeah. I was a
like,
gold broker.
like Dan said, Brian Johnson, the guy that wants to live forever. I'm not sure what he has to do with Bitcoin. But
yeah.
Okay,
I
it's cool.
guess.
It's got some quite.
Dan Moorhead from Pantera, who hates me. Don Trump Jr. That's funny. He doesn't even have any qualifications. No offense meant, but it's his blank here. And then finally, Trace Mayer. It says, "Oh, I don't like this." It says Urim Capital. URIM. URIM. That is a tough name for a company.
Sorry.
I like Trace. I don't want to be mean to his company, but Urim, and also sounds like urine.
Well, you know, that's actually, I believe that's a biblical reference. So the priests in the Old Testament, they would have the Urim and the Thummim, I think is how you'd say it.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
Right. And they would use these things to divine the will of God. So kind of a question about what they actually were. I think it's a little bit uncertain, but
holy crypto.
That's a really
early
interesting reference, Robert.
Yeah.
I'd never heard of that reference, so that's fascinating. And Trace, of course, historically is a religious Mormon person by his choice and so forth. Not a secret, I don't think, but very cool to see Trace. I hope to see him at the convention. Also, just again, so strange the bedfellows, like you said. Eric Trump is on here. To the right of Trace, we have Hester Pierce, the commissioner from the SEC. So remember when Trace was like a rebel and we were all rebel Bitcoiners? And now we're hanging out with the commissioners from the SEC. She supports crypto, for the record, but it is interesting. And then we have that strange thing that we saw the other day. If you're in crypto and you make speeches, change your name to Aaron, because they sorted it alphabetical by first name. So if you go down here do we get to C for Chris? If your name was Dan, you're left off the list. Robert, I'm sorry, you're way lower. Way off. And they don't even have a button for like view additional speakers. It just cuts off at C.
Maybe they didn't.
So really interesting choices.
I can always put my name as Aaron. I mean, why not?
I think Aaron,
I identify as an Aaron. What can I do?
A Robert, like just change your name to A Robert.
There
A
you go.
Thomas, A Dan. Because you want to be on the front page,
Rim.
like all these other people. Hey, I just read it off the screen, man. Like they could have workshopped it.
No. Thomas,
it.
I have a challenge for you, because you're railing against the right wing conference, and that's fine. When are you going to come up with the left wing Bitcoin conference in the United States?
That'd be cool.
Right? You should lead it.
Yeah.
Or get some friends. I mean, I would even come. I mean,
actually, I support that cause and stuff. And there is a progressive Bitcoiner YouTube channel, and they do interview progressive things and try to talk about it. But the main thing I would say is even though I could run it and stuff, it'd be fun. I wouldn't really want a left-wing Bitcoin conference. What I want is that center Bitcoin conference where they get the left and the right and they balance it out and they get both sides. Because I really think that crypto is good for right, crypto is good for left, depending on what you want to focus on. And in general, I've said for a long time, I think that Bitcoin just changes everything. So if you like disaster relief after a disaster and you donate, Bruce Springsteen sings on TV or whatever, that's the only money that's going to be raised in the future, because the government won't be able to print the money. So that's a problem for disaster relief. Other people might say for war, buying weapons, the government can't print money, they can't buy weapons, they can't stockpile them, although we're seeing many workarounds for that. But in general, I think that it's better to have Bitcoin changes everything like the internet did, and it's it's happening, and we need to react with it. We can't try to put it back in the box. We can't say it's not happening. And again, I think we get that with both sides of the aisle, and we've drifted over. I mean, anybody can look at this lineup and see it's very right wing, but I fear that's going to cost us in the future. Even if I was right wing, I would say, well, we've got all those people, but how are we going to get those left wing people when we've just done this big?
So I hear you, but here's what I'm saying. Like, okay, so you're going to have a hard time right now, given the divisiveness of kind of how the world is right now. You're gonna have a hard time getting all those people in a room initially, but if you could get the left-wing people in a room, build some momentum, right? And then eventually you could put them all together. That's what I think, might actually
Yeah.
work. Because
Yeah.
Bitcoin can unite people, but I hate to say it, but I don't see a lot of Bitcoiners on the left. And I think I would argue it's because I think it's basically antithetical in some ways to their core beliefs. Now, granted, you're here and you're pretty leftist, and you've stayed that course and been a Bitcoiner. So it can be possible. I think it's to be, try to be gracious, but I think it's a little bit of a cognitive dissonance, but to each his own.
Well, the
Yeah.
core of some of the Bitcoin principles, right, of banking the unbanked and taking the power away from
Well, that's
the
true. That's
traditional
true.
banks is
Yeah,
That's true.
that's all left-wing hippie stuff.
That's
Helping
true.
with
That's
other
true.
countries. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess, yeah, you're right. If you go far enough back in the left wing, there's some of that stuff that makes sense. I think I've just been so jaded by the modern corporate left wing that has just become corporate drone, do what we're told kind of thing, that it's hard for me to remember. But yeah, you're right. I think if you go far enough back, kind of.
And I also think
Yeah.
it's just important for everyone to say, like, with the internet, the world has changed. Like, if you were
Yeah,
running
yeah.
a newspaper business and I said, "Oh, we have the internet," and you said, "Oh, we're going to just ignore that," that'd be a problem. In the same way, you run a financial business.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
say I have the Bitcoin. You're left, you're right, you're whatever. Your financial business needs to look into the Bitcoin, needs to understand it.
Right.
And I think that for all people left and right, and the same, like I'm saying,
You're
for
right.
government,
Yeah.
like
Yeah,
if
yeah.
it changes how we raise money, it changes how we fund things. And I think there's going to be, unfortunately, workarounds. Our initial idea of government having no money for weapons, they'll rehypothecate some Bitcoin. They'll spin up some fake Bitcoin. They'll do some kind of leveraged thing, whatever, with their finance magic, and they'll get the money and they'll get the weapons. But it does help us in other ways. And I think, again, it's this transformational thing where it's not left or right. It's like the lightning bolt has come down. The world is now different. I'm not ignoring it as a left-wing person. I'm not trying to put it back in the box. Like, from past of technology, I know that's foolish. But I do think if we looked ahead and we had laws to try to soften the landings of people, things like this, tops and bottoms of things. So
We're all going to be Bitcoiners eventually because out of necessity. I think that's essentially what's the end result here of all of this. So yeah.
But we'll see how this conference goes. I'll be there in a couple of weeks. I'll try, and I'm going to try. I don't know if I should try to do interviews and stuff or not, but I'll hang out and I'll see what happens.
Are you on Nostr, by the way?
Sure. Yeah,
you are. Okay. I need to find you on there because I basically deleted Twitter. I'm just tired of it. So it's too distracting and it takes up too much of my attention. But I'd love to, if you post on there, especially at the conference, it'd be fun to follow along. So we'll just, shoot, make sure I have your, I can follow you. Give me your NPub.
Yeah, I haven't been posting too much on Nostr. Sadly, I don't seem to get much of a response. I don't have much of a following. In another way, though, Twitter, and I won't just signal them out, Facebook and YouTube as well. Even if you have a following, you can't get a response anymore. They've changed the systems to where, we tried really hard and we earned 50,000 or so subscribers on each of those platforms, I'd say. And, each one of them, YouTube, you want to get them to the people, they won't do notifications unless you watch it every week. And they're not going to watch every week. They're not going to click on every notification. That's unreasonable. But that's the way their system works because they're trying to deliver you addictive, high quality content. The same way Facebook won't send it to all our friends unless we pay them. And Twitter, the same way, you have to pay them to get it even sent in the quality of being sent. So Nostr, I can send all I want, but no one replies. So it's different problems for different networks. But in general, as a creative, content type person, I do feel we've kind of lost the on-ramp, that there's not a way where you try really hard like you guys did with your cartoons and, you got a lot of views and maybe not perfect or whatever, but you got a lot of attention and you built that out of nothing. And you didn't have to bribe Facebook and Twitter to get in. Even if you paid the bribes, I'm not sure that you could get that attention that you used to be able to get when you go viral things, that they've kind of muted that. And it doesn't surprise me. We've seen this with other technologies, but it does it horrifies me personally because I've put time into trying to get these subscribers so I could deliver the content. The subscribers have subscribed trying to get the content. Like, we're all together. And the company is like, you have to pay us and bribe us. And I don't have the money, and I don't think it's ethical either to try to bribe them or so forth. And the Twitter thing is the same kind of thing. To get messages in there, you have to be verified, I think, is what it's become.
Yeah, I mean, so what I would say about Noster is what I like about it is that there's no algorithm really. I mean, there depends on the app. You can get like trending and some things like that. But generally speaking, you're going to get the people you follow. You're going to see them in your feed. And then what I'm finding is it's just becoming more of like a truly like what a social network used to be, which is like these are some people that I think I have common interest and I want to hear what they have to say and I want to be involved in some of these conversations. And so as I've been just enjoying those conversations and chiming in here and there, I'm building some natural friendships with people. And so it feels much less like a transactional thing and more organic. I mean, it's taking, engagement. It's not like I can just post and go off and just do whatever I want. Like I need to, you kind of have to work at it. Just like, in meat space, you have to work at friendships. But the point being, I feel like, you're not like these frustrations you have around Facebook and so on. I don't see that because the algorithms basically aren't there. And so it's much more of like just old school, what you see is what you get, and who you follow is who you're going to hear from. So yeah, I'm enjoying it. It's much less noisy and much more peaceful. So yeah, come post more. I'll, if I'm following you and I see a post, I will definitely engage. You've got one engager.
Well, I'll give it a try. And it's funny because I agree with what you're saying about not having the algorithm, but I also
Right.
see the other side where that algorithm is the one that's going to deliver me the related video where I like Mad Bitcoin, so I get the Crypto Raptor rap that comes in as well. And that kind of like suggestion thing can be good, can bring you good content. I think it can also bring you more negative content, can bring you more politically content you agree with. We can have
Sure.
negative algorithmic things.
Right.
But as for Nostr, I want to go ahead and pimp Ben's website as well. Ben is one of the creators of Nostr, our friend Ben Ark.
Oh yeah.
And he's got Nostr.com. You can check out Nostr at Nostr.com. You can buy kind of like a Nostr.com alias. So you could be like John at Nostr.com. And they just put up a system now where you can auction these aliases and you can buy a Nostr.com identifier. So that'd be cool to help Ben out and help out his other projects and stuff. And yeah, we're big fans of Nostr, but yeah, it's just hard to leverage it as a creator, and especially hard to leave other platforms where you have like 50K subs and stuff. Even if it's not successful in your mind, you still think you have 50K subs, and maybe if I just did the right post, it would hit them. But I've done hundreds of posts over the years, and it's not hitting them. The wall is real. You have to pay, so on and so forth. But I don't know, Dan, more on this before we close out.
I was
Talking
just going to say that I think that it seems that the For You feed it's like changed so. I don't know when they split the For You and then the actual for your from your followers. So there's probably only about like 5% of, if less than that, of the posts from people that I'm following that come up in the For You feed. And I must admit, the rest of it's addictive like crack. So I tend to check the For You stuff because it's the more crazy, outlandish stuff that lands, right? Whereas, and every now and then, like I'm like, stop doing scrolling, click over to just following, and I'm like, cool, all the stuff that I'm interested in, just the stuff that I'm interested in, and then the crack, I want the crack again. I'm like, For You, and then I see all the crazy stuff, and I just get in there, and then it just repeats that, and then I delete Twitter. X, and then I go back on again, and then like I'm just going to be on following, and then I'm like, I want crack For You, and then I get the crack, and then I
I've
delete it.
definitely seen that, Dan, and I have the same thing where on my following, it's mostly like crypto people, technical people. It's very kind of boring. But if I click For You, it'll give me some spicy stuff about the Oakland A's who left town and how people are angry. And I try to
Yeah.
block all that because I don't want to be angry anymore. I want to move on from the Oakland A's. I'm sad, but I'm moving on. But no, the For You feed does not let you move on. It brings you right back into your
Oh
thing.
yeah.
I think I also see more of my political stuff in the For You feed,
Yeah.
stuff like that. So it is interesting, but yeah, I agree with you, Dan. I can't quit it. The following is boring. Robert, what do you think? Same problem?
Follow me, brothers. Delete it. You'll be
Yes.
better
I
off.
will, I will.
Trust me. I'm the angel on your shoulder. Just listen.
Yeah, well, we're in too deep. But let us know in the comments in the chat below what you think if you're addicted to social media, if you like one platform better than the other. If you've tried Nostr, let us know down below.
Give us a
But
thumbs up if you
yeah,
enjoyed our mocking,
yeah,
and
give
you
us
want to
a
learn
thumbs
about
up.
more. If you want to learn more about URIM Capital, I've been crying
Urim.
inside.
It's pronounced Urim. Urim, which doesn't make it any better.
You're in for
We like your space, but we're rooting for another name. But Robert got the biblical reference, so you got one. You got 1/3. It's tough numbers though, 1/3.
Yeah.
And I usually get the biblical references, so I was over my head. That's a big reference. But thanks to everybody for joining us in the chat and down below, sending us comments, giving us a thumbs up and the subscribe. We're going to try to hold on a little bit at the end of the show, but it keeps cutting off the buys. It's really strange. So I'm going to count to 5 after the buys. You guys let me know if it works. But until next time, bye.